Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much effort you put into changing your life, the same patterns keep showing up again and again? You visualize, you affirm, you script your desires, you journal every morning, and still, when you open your eyes to the world, the same circumstances appear to greet you. The same bills on the table, the same silence from the person you hoped would text you, the same tight feeling in your chest that maybe, just maybe, you're stuck where you've always been. It's as if reality refuses to change, as if your efforts dissolve into thin air the moment you start to hope. And in that moment, a quiet voice creeps in. Maybe this is just who I am. Maybe this is just my life. That voice, that subtle resignation, is not the truth of who you are. It is the echo of what I call the observer trap, the invisible cycle that keeps you seeing more of the same, even as you try to break free. Imagine standing in front of a mirror and frowning at your reflection. You want to see a smile. You even say out loud, "I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm abundant." But if your face doesn't change, the mirror cannot give you a different reflection. The mistake most people make in their spiritual journey is trying to wrestle with the mirror when the real work is happening on the side of the observer. The moment you shift who you are, the reflection must follow. Yet most of us stay staring at the mirror, frowning, harder, waiting for the glass to shift first. This is why so many seekers feel frustration, burnout, and even doubt on their spiritual path. They meditate, they visualize, they learn about the law of attraction or reality shifting, but they approach it with the same old eyes that created the problem. They are observing from the frequency of lack, from the frequency of doubt, from the frequency of the old self that believes change is hard. And so reality, ever faithful, reflects exactly that state of observation. The result is a loop. You hope, you try, you look, and you see the same thing again. With every repetition, the trap tightens, and it begins to feel like the universe is ignoring you. But here's the truth that begins to break the spell. The universe has never ignored you. In fact, it has been responding to you with perfect accuracy all along. Every repetition of more of the same is not punishment, it is evidence, evidence that reality is listening, and that your observation has weight. It is proof that consciousness is creative, because it mirrors exactly what you bring to it. When you begin to understand this, you stop asking, "Why does nothing ever change?" And instead you begin to ask, "What am I observing? What am I bringing to the mirror?" And in that question lies the seed of your liberation. Think about the times in your life when you wanted something so badly, but your attention kept going back to its absence. You wanted love, but you noticed the empty side of the bed every night. You wanted money, but you kept staring at your shrinking bank balance. You wanted healing, but you couldn't stop touching the sore spot, wondering why it wasn't gone yet. In those moments, you were observing, with devotion, the very reality you wanted to leave behind, and so it kept following you. It wasn't that your desire was weak. It wasn't that you were unworthy. It was that you were caught in the trap of being both the creator and the prisoner of your observation. And yet, there is another side to this. Consider the moments when you shifted your attention, even for a short time, when you laughed with a friend and forgot your worry for just an evening, when you allowed yourself to daydream about a future so bright it felt real for a heartbeat, when you walked outside and the beauty of the sky, the softness of the wind, made you feel whole for no reason at all. In those moments, reality seemed lighter, kinder, more flexible. Why? Because you stepped outside the old observation and touched the edges of a new one. You were no longer chained to more of the same. You glimpsed what it means to see with new eyes. This is what I want to share with you. The observer trap is not permanent, and it is not here to defeat you. It is a stage of awakening, a doorway through which every seeker must pass. It feels uncomfortable because it shows you the raw truth, that your world has been made of your observation, and that you are free to choose again. Some people resist this because it puts the responsibility back in their hands, but others, those ready for true transformation, embrace it because they realize that if they created the trap, they can also create the escape. In the journey ahead, we are going to explore exactly how this trap works, why it has such power over your reality, and most importantly, how to shift beyond it. We'll uncover the mechanics of consciousness, the loops of identity that keep you circling in the same stories, and the practices that allow you to step into a new timeline. But before any of that, I want you to feel something in this moment. I want you to realize that the very fact you are here, listening, searching, means you are already loosening the trap. The old self who was content to suffer in silence would not be here. The old self who believed change was impossible would not have clicked this video. That part of you is dissolving, and the part that remains, the seeker, the observer, the creator, is awakening. So as we begin, take a deep breath. Let yourself notice the subtle shift already happening. You are not here by accident. You are not stuck forever, and what has seemed like more of the same is about to reveal itself as the very evidence you need to change everything. This is the beginning of a different way of seeing, and when you change the way you see, you change the world you live in. When people first hear the phrase observer trap, it sounds mysterious, even complicated, as if it's some hidden law of the universe that only mystics understand. But in truth, it is something you have experienced every single day of your life. To understand it, imagine yourself as both the scientist and the experiment in your own reality. Just like in quantum physics, where the act of observation changes the behavior of particles, your awareness is not passive, it is creative. The simple act of looking at life, expecting it to be a certain way, literally shapes what you see. And yet, because most of us observe unconsciously, we end up reinforcing the very situations we want to escape. This is the essence of the trap. Think about a time when you were expecting disappointment. Maybe you applied for a job, but deep down, you thought, they probably won't pick me. When you opened the rejection email, it felt like confirmation. See, I knew this would happen. In reality, it wasn't fate, and it wasn't punishment. It was your observation feeding into your experience. Because when you expect rejection, you carry yourself differently. You speak with less confidence, and you unconsciously send out a signal of lack. The outer event mirrored the inner state, and then the mind used it as proof that the old belief was correct. This is how the trap feeds itself. Observe, repeat, confirm, suffer, and start again. The observer trap operates at 3 levels: attention, emotion, and identity. At the level of attention, it is about what you focus on most consistently. Where your gaze goes, energy flows, and reality forms. If your gaze rests on lack, you fuel lack. If it rests on abundance, you fuel abundance. At the level of emotion, the trap is tied to the energy you project. Fear, doubt, and resentment are not just feelings, they are vibrational frequencies that attract experiences in harmony with them. And at the level of identity, the trap locks in, because you begin to believe, this is just who I am. The observer becomes fused with the story. Instead of saying, I experienced failure, the mind whispers, I am a failure. This fusion is what makes the mirror so convincing. But here is the subtle twist. The trap doesn't mean you have no power. In fact, it is proof that your power is immense. Think of it this way: if your reality can keep faithfully repeating your old state of consciousness, imagine what it could do if you shifted that state. The same mechanism that has kept you stuck can be used to set you free. It is not your enemy. It is simply a law, operating without your conscious direction. Like gravity, it does not discriminate. It mirrors whatever you bring to it, whether you do so deliberately or unconsciously. Now, let's talk about the role of the subconscious in this cycle. Your subconscious mind is the silent engine of your observation. It is like a camera lens, always pointed at the world, but filtered by old beliefs, memories, and impressions. When you tell yourself, I'm abundant, but the subconscious still holds memories of lack, the subconscious lens tilts toward lack, and you continue to notice every bill, every scarcity, every missed opportunity. This is why people feel that affirmations sometimes don't work. They are trying to paint a new picture over a lens that hasn't been cleaned. The subconscious doesn't respond to words alone. It responds to the frequency of belief, to the emotional weight behind the words. One of the clearest examples of the observer trap can be seen in relationships. Let's say you've been hurt in the past, betrayed, or abandoned. You carry that wound forward, and now when you meet someone new, part of you is scanning for danger. You observe them not with openness, but with suspicion. Will they leave me too? Will they cheat? Will they break my heart? And because you are watching so intently for signs of betrayal, you notice every late reply, every missed call, every small inconsistency. You amplify these details, interpret them through your wound, and soon enough, you react with fear or clinginess. What happens? The relationship strains under the weight of your observation, and the cycle repeats. Then you say, see, everyone leaves. But it wasn't everyone, it was your observation creating the stage for repetition. The same applies to money. If you believe life is hard, that money only comes through struggle, you will observe every struggle as proof. Even when opportunities arise, you may overlook them because they don't match your expectation. You focus instead on the difficulty, on the bills, on the debt, and the universe mirrors back exactly what you are looking at. This is not because you are cursed, it is because consciousness cannot help but show you what you are fixated on. What makes the trap so persuasive is the illusion of evidence. When life reflects back the same old story, it feels undeniable. Look, you say, I wanted change, but nothing happened. But the truth is, something did happen. You observed from the old self, and the mirror reflected it back faithfully. The evidence is not proof of powerlessness, it is proof of the power of your observation. The trap is that you misinterpret the evidence as final truth, instead of realizing it is simply a reflection of your current lens. So how do you begin to see the mechanics for what they are? Start by recognizing that observation is not neutral. Every thought, every focus, every subtle expectation is creative. You may think you are simply noticing reality, but in truth, you are shaping it. This is why spiritual teachers across traditions have said the same thing in different words, as within so without. The outer world is not fixed, it is fluid, and it flows in harmony with your inner state. Another way to understand this is through the metaphor of tuning forks. If you strike a tuning fork vibrating at a certain frequency, another fork nearby tuned to the same note will begin to vibrate as well. Your observation is like the first tuning fork. If it hums at the frequency of fear, life hums back with experiences that resonate with fear. If it hums at the frequency of love, life hums back with experiences that resonate with love. The observer trap is simply the unconscious striking of the same fork again and again, expecting a new sound but hearing the same note echo. And yet, this recognition is profoundly liberating. Because once you understand that the trap is not a curse but a mechanism, you realize it can be shifted. Just as the scientist influences the experiment by the way they observe, you influence your reality by the way you observe. The difference is whether you do it consciously or unconsciously. The old self is trapped in unconscious observation. The new self becomes a deliberate observer, choosing what lens to look through. So the mechanics of the trap are not here to discourage you. They are here to reveal the astonishing consistency of the universe. They show you that reality has always been listening, that it has never betrayed you. Every repetition has been a mirror, and every mirror is an invitation. The question is no longer, why does nothing change? The real question becomes, am I willing to see differently? For the moment you are willing to shift the way you observe, the entire stage of your reality must rearrange. Most people think they are battling with external circumstances, but the real battle is far closer to home. It is the battle of identity, the quiet, invisible cycle of who you believe yourself to be. You may want abundance, but if you still believe deep down, I am the person who never has enough, your reality cannot break free from that mold. You may want love, but if your identity whispers, I am unworthy of deep connection, your observation will continue to attract situations that mirror rejection. The cycle of belief is the hidden skeleton of the observer trap, and until you see it clearly, it will keep holding you in the same patterns. Identity is not just who you say you are. It is the deep program running in your subconscious. It is the story you repeat silently about yourself when no one is listening. For many, that story was written long ago by childhood experiences, by society, by repeated disappointments. Perhaps you were told you were too much or not enough. Perhaps you grew up hearing that money was scarce, that love was fragile, that success belonged to other people. Those impressions sink in and become an internal narrator, a voice that says, this is how life works for me. And because reality mirrors belief, you continue to see proof of the very story you carry. This creates what I call the identity loop. First, a belief takes root. That belief shapes the way you observe the world. Your observation attracts experiences that confirm the belief. Those experiences reinforce the identity, which deepens the belief, and the cycle starts again. It is like a wheel turning endlessly. To the conscious mind, it looks like fate or bad luck. But to the awakened observer, it is a self-fulfilling cycle of identity projecting itself into form. Let's look at an example. Many people struggle with scarcity. Imagine someone who grew up hearing, money doesn't grow on trees. We can't afford that. People like us have to work twice as hard. That person develops an identity of being someone who must struggle for money. Even when opportunities appear, they may unconsciously sabotage them, hesitate to take risks, or feel guilty when abundance flows in. Their observation, tinted by the identity of scarcity, keeps noticing bills, debts, struggles. Each time they see evidence of lack, they say, see, that's just the way it is. But what they don't realize is that their identity created the observation in the first place. Now shift to love. Imagine someone who has been rejected in relationships more than once. They start to carry the identity of being unlovable or always abandoned. When they meet someone new, they anticipate rejection. Their observation scans for signs of disinterest, and because they expect abandonment, they act clingy or defensive. The other person feels this energy and pulls away. The old wound repeats. The person says, "Why does this always happen to me?" Not realizing that their identity as the abandoned one is coloring every interaction. Again, the loop tightens. This is where the emotional addiction enters. The body becomes so used to the feelings of disappointment, fear, or lack, that it begins to crave them. The familiar pain feels safer than the unfamiliar possibility of joy. Neurologically, the brain wires itself around those emotional states. The person says they want abundance, but their nervous system is addicted to the stress of scarcity. They say they want love, but their heart is addicted to the ache of longing. The observer trap is reinforced not only by the mind, but by the body itself. It becomes a cycle of identity, belief, and emotional chemistry. But here is the key. Identity is not permanent. You are not born with the belief that life is hard. You are not born with the belief that love abandons you. These were learned impressions, adopted through experience, repetition, and emotion. And what has been learned can be unlearned. More than that, it can be rewritten. This is the power of conscious observation. When you begin to choose a new identity, you are not lying to yourself. You are planting a new seed, one that reality must eventually reflect if you nurture it with consistency. So how does this shift begin? First, by catching the old identity in the act. Start noticing the phrases you use. Do you say things like, "I always struggle, I never get a break, I'm just not that kind of person"? Each phrase is a window into the identity that has been running your life. The more you hear it, the more you realize how automatic it has become. Awareness is the first crack in the loop. For once you see the pattern, you no longer confuse it with truth. You recognize it for what it is, a story, not reality. The next step is to gently shift the story. This is where most people get discouraged. They try to leap from "I am always broke" to "I am a millionaire," but the subconscious rejects such a huge jump. The identity feels fake, and the emotional body cannot align. Instead, the shift must be gradual, but consistent. From "I always struggle," you might move to "I am learning to welcome ease." From "I am unlovable," you might move to "I am opening myself to love," step by step. These small shifts are powerful because they begin to alter the observation lens without triggering resistance. Over time, as you feed the new identity, reality begins to show evidence. You may notice small financial wins, a sense of flow in unexpected places, or moments of genuine connection in relationships. If you honor these as signs of your new self, the loop begins to reverse. Belief shapes observation, observation attracts experience, and the experience reinforces the new identity. This is how transformation becomes natural, not forced. One of the most profound realizations you can have is this: you do not see reality as it is, you see reality as you are. This simple statement carries the key to liberation. If you change who you believe yourself to be, you change what you observe. If you change what you observe, you change what life mirrors back. And so the old self, trapped in loops of scarcity, fear, or abandonment, slowly dissolves. The new self emerges, not by fighting with the mirror, but by becoming a different observer altogether. Consider the difference between two identities. One person wakes up and thinks, "Life is a struggle, I have to push through the day." They observe stress everywhere, and stress becomes their reality. Another person wakes up and thinks, "Life is supporting me, I am guided." They observe opportunities, synchronicities, moments of ease, and that becomes their reality. Both are living in the same outer world, yet their inner identity shapes two very different experiences. This is the subtle but powerful truth of the observer trap. Identity determines what you can even see. Now imagine applying this understanding deliberately. Imagine choosing, every morning, to observe from the identity of the self you want to become. Not pretending, not faking, but gently shifting the way you hold yourself, the way you speak to yourself, the way you expect life to meet you. At first, the old evidence will still appear. The bills may still be there. The loneliness may still echo. But if you continue to feed the new identity, something magical happens. You stop interpreting the old evidence as proof against you. You begin to see it as simply the residue of the old self dissolving. And soon enough, new evidence begins to arrive, proof of the shift you have made within. This is the breaking point of the cycle. When you no longer use old experiences as evidence of who you are, the loop loses its power. When you begin to see yourself differently, life must follow. This is not wishful thinking. It is the natural law of observation. Consciousness cannot help but reflect the identity it is infused with. and you as the observer, hold the pen that writes your story. So the cycle of identity and belief is not here to imprison you forever. It is here to show you how consistent and powerful your consciousness truly is. The same loop that once kept you stuck can become the very engine of your transformation. The choice is no longer between fate and freedom. The choice is between observing from the old self or observing from the new, and the moment you choose the new self, the trap begins to unravel. Now that you understand how the observer trap operates, and how identity and belief quietly create the stage of your life, the next question is the most important one. How do you shift beyond it? How do you stop staring into the mirror of old evidence and finally create something new? The answer is not to fight the mirror, nor to deny the reflection. The answer is to shift your place of observation, to step into the role of conscious creator rather than unconscious prisoner. The first key to breaking free is awareness. This may sound simple, but awareness is far more powerful than most realize. When you become aware of the trap can no longer run automatically. You begin to notice when your mind is scanning for proof of the old story. You catch yourself saying, "See, nothing ever changes," and in that moment, you create space between the old identity and your true self. Awareness interrupts the loop. Instead of being swept away by the current of unconscious observation, you pause and recognize, I see what's happening. This pause is small but revolutionary. It is the first crack in the cycle. From that space of awareness, you can begin to redirect your observation. One of the most effective ways to do this is through deliberate focus. Every day, countless details compete for your attention. The trap works by pulling you toward the details that confirm your old belief, but you have the power to shift your gaze. This doesn't mean denying challenges. It means choosing to give more energy to possibilities than to problems. For example, instead of staring at the one bill you can't pay yet, focus on the money that did come in, no matter how small. Instead of obsessing over the partner who hasn't arrived, focus on the love you feel in friendships, in family, in the warmth of the sun. When you do this consistently, you are not ignoring reality. You are training your observation to find a new frequency. Another method is the practice of alreadiness. This is where you step into the state of being as if the desire has already manifested. The trap keeps you locked in the frequency of waiting, of lack, of not yet, but the way out is to embody the feeling of already. Ask yourself, if my desire were already here, how would I feel? How would I carry myself? What would I expect from life? Then begin to live from that state, even in small ways. If abundance were already yours, perhaps you would walk with more ease, breathe with more trust, or treat yourself to small acts of generosity. If love were already here, perhaps you would soften your heart, smile more freely, or allow yourself to feel beautiful now. Each time you step into alreadiness, you shift your observation from lack to fulfillment, and the mirror must eventually reflect that change. Visualization and scripting are also powerful tools when used correctly. The mistake many make is to visualize their desire while secretly observing its absence. They picture the dream life, but the emotional undertone is, "I don't have it yet." This only strengthens the trap. The key is to visualize with immersion, to lose yourself in the scene until it feels real. Write about your future self as though it is your present self. Speak it, see it, and most importantly, feel it. When you feel it deeply, your subconscious begins to accept it as familiar, and reality starts aligning with the new observation. Meditation is another doorway out of the trap. In stillness, you withdraw attention from the old evidence. You step back from the stories, the emotions, the endless scanning for proof. You rest in pure awareness, the place of the observer before identity, before belief. In that state, you are free, because you are no longer entangled with the old self. Meditation is like resetting the lens. It clears the smudges of doubt, fear, and memory, so you can see with fresh eyes. From that clarity, you are more able to choose deliberately how you want to observe. And then there is the power of small actions, aligned with the new self. The trap convinces you that change must be massive, that you must leap from one timeline to another overnight. But in truth, transformation often begins with small, consistent steps. If your new identity is someone abundant, begin to act with small gestures of generosity or self-worth. If your new identity is someone loved, begin to treat yourself with the kindness you expect from others. Each small action is a signal to your subconscious. This is who I am now. Over time, the actions reinforce the identity shifts the observation, and the observation reshapes reality. One of the most challenging aspects of shifting beyond the trap is dealing with old evidence. Even as you begin to change, the mirror may still reflect remnants of the old self for a while. This is where most people give up. They look at the lingering bills, the empty room, the unanswered messages, and they say, "See, nothing is changing," but you must learn to interpret old evidence differently. Instead of seeing it as proof against you, see it as the fading echo of a past self. Just as an old sound continues to ring after the bell has stopped, your old reality may still echo even as you shift. If you hold steady in your new observation, the echo fades, and the new reflection takes its place. Gratitude is one of the most powerful antidotes to the trap. Gratitude pulls your focus toward what is already aligned, what is already good. It shifts your frequency from lack to abundance instantly. When you practice gratitude, you are observing life through the lens of sufficiency, and reality mirrors it back with more to be grateful for. Even in the midst of challenges, gratitude creates cracks in the walls of the trap, allowing light to enter. Another subtle yet profound practice is self-compassion. Many seekers berate themselves when they fall into old patterns. They think, "Why am I still stuck? Why can't I get this right?" But this harshness only reinforces the identity of being broken. Self-compassion, on the other hand, softens the loop. It says, "I see myself. I honor the effort. I am learning." This kindness toward yourself keeps you aligned with love, and love is always a higher frequency than fear. The trap cannot survive long when met with genuine love for yourself. So shifting beyond the observer trap is not about forcing reality to change overnight. It is about gently but consistently changing the way you observe. Awareness, focus, all-readiness, visualization, meditation, aligned action, gratitude, self-compassion. These are not just spiritual practices, they are keys to unlocking the lens of a new self. And as you use them, you will begin to notice something extraordinary. Reality becomes more fluid, more responsive, more alive. The mirror no longer feels like a wall, it feels like a dance partner, moving in harmony with your chosen rhythm. You do not escape the trap by fighting with it. You escape it by outgrowing it, by becoming the version of yourself who no longer needs to stare at the old reflection, by embodying the truth that you are not the prisoner of your observation, you are the one who chooses how to see. And when you see differently, the world has no choice but to shift with you. As we come to the close of this journey, take a moment to notice how far you have already traveled. You began by recognizing the frustration of seeing more of the same in your life, the endless repetition of old patterns that seemed impossible to break. You learned that this was not failure on your part, not evidence that the universe had abandoned you, but the simple result of the observer trap, your own consciousness mirroring back what it has been conditioned to see. You have seen that the trap is not your enemy. It is a faithful servant, reflecting the identity, the beliefs, and the emotional states you have carried. You have seen how identity loops, how subconscious beliefs, and how emotional addictions have kept you circling in familiar patterns. And you have also discovered that this very mechanism, which once kept you stuck, can be used to set you free. For if reality can reflect the old self so consistently, imagine how faithfully it will reflect the new self you now choose to become. The practices you have heard, awareness, gratitude, meditation, visualization, self-compassion, and the embodiment of all-readiness, are not just techniques, they are invitations. Each one is a doorway to a new way of seeing, a new lens of observation, and as you begin to use them, you will notice the subtle yet undeniable truth. Reality is not rigid, it is alive, responsive, and endlessly willing to meet you at the level of your chosen frequency. So the question now is not whether you can shift your reality. You already can. The question is, will you continue to stare into the mirror of the old self, demanding that it change first? Or will you take the bolder step, the more courageous step, of becoming the observer who sees differently, even before the evidence arrives? This is where true transformation begins, not when the outer world finally shifts, but when your inner gaze becomes aligned with the self you are choosing to embody. Remember, every great change begins invisibly. A seed planted in the earth shows no immediate proof of life, yet it is already growing in the unseen. Your new identity, your new observation, is like that seed. At first, the surface may still look the same, but if you remain faithful, if you continue to water it with awareness and nurture it with belief, it will break through, and soon the reflection in the mirror will be transformed. The observer trap taught you the power of unconscious observation. Now let this moment teach you the power of conscious creation. You are not here by accident. The very fact that you are listening means you are ready to step out of the loop. You are ready to stop recycling the old self and step into alignment with the version of you who has always been waiting. Take a deep breath now and feel it. You are not stuck. You are shifting, here and now. Every thought, every focus, every choice to observe from love instead of fear, from abundance instead of lack, from faith instead of doubt, is a step into your new timeline. And as you practice, the universe will respond, faithfully and beautifully, with reflections you have never seen before. This is your moment. This is your invitation. See differently, and the world will show you a different face. You are the observer, and you are the creator, and the mirror of reality is ready to reflect back the new story you are brave enough to hold.